Just days before Christmas, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through royal watching circles and charity oversight communities alike. The couple announced they are completely restructuring their Archewell Foundation, rebranding it as Archewell Philanthropies, and shifting to an entirely new operational model. On the surface, their spokesperson dressed it up as a natural evolution, claiming this next chapter would allow them to broaden their global philanthropic efforts as a family. But behind the carefully crafted press release, sources suggest something far more troubling may be unfolding. The timing of this announcement has raised serious eyebrows among financial experts and royal commentators. Why would anyone completely overhaul their charitable organization right before the holidays, during a period when most foundations are focused on year-end giving and celebratory impact reports? Unless, of course, there was an urgent need to get ahead of mounting scrutiny. Let's be absolutely clear about what's happening here. The Sussexes aren't simply changing a logo or updating their mission statement. They are fundamentally altering the legal and financial structure of their entire charitable operation. The new fiscal sponsorship model they've adopted is a significant departure from running a traditional private foundation. And while their team insists this allows for greater flexibility and reduced administrative burden, charity watchdogs are pointing out something the couple probably hoped nobody would notice. This new structure dramatically reduces the visibility into specific programs and how donor money actually gets spent. Under the previous foundation model, Archwell was required to file detailed IRS Form 990 documents outlining every grant, every expenditure, and every financial decision. Their 2023 filing, for example, showed exactly where the money went, including $150,000 to Screen Sanity for child online safety initiatives. Going forward, that level of transparency could vanish entirely. Palace insiders whisper that Meghan has been increasingly anxious about the foundation's public financial records. The scrutiny intensified dramatically after their humiliating delinquency notice from California's Attorney General earlier this year. Being barred from fundraising, even temporarily, was a PR nightmare that reportedly left the Duchess absolutely livid. And now, just months later, they're completely restructuring their charitable enterprise. Coincidence? Royal sources close to the situation suggest otherwise. Word on the street in Montecito is that the Sussexes have been quietly consulting with financial advisors and legal teams for months, desperately seeking ways to reduce their exposure to charity oversight requirements. The rebrand announcement, timed strategically alongside their heavily produced holiday video and awkward family card, appears designed to bury the real story beneath layers of festive PR spin. But here's what Meghan and Harry perhaps didn't anticipate. The charity watchdog community has been paying very close attention to Archwell since its inception. Organizations like Charity Watch have been requesting documents and asking pointed questions that have gone conspicuously unanswered. And the IRS takes a dim view of foundations that fail to maintain proper records or meet filing requirements. The foundation may have a shiny new name, but the questions surrounding it are only growing louder, and what comes next might shake Meghan Markle to her very core. The seeds of this charitable crisis were planted long before the holiday rebrand announcement. Back in May of 2024, the Archewell Foundation faced what can only be described as a catastrophic embarrassment. California's Attorney General issued a formal delinquency notice, effectively barring Harry and Meghan's charity from soliciting or spending any funds whatsoever. For a couple who have built their entire post-royal identity around philanthropy and doing good, this was nothing short of devastating. The delinquency notice was issued because Archewell had failed to submit required annual reports and renewal fees on time. For any legitimate charitable organization, this is nonprofit management 101. You file your paperwork, you pay your fees, you maintain your standing with the state. Yet somehow, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, with all their wealth and access to top-tier legal and financial advisors, couldn't manage this basic administrative task. Their excuse? Brace yourself, because this is truly something. The Sussexes claimed that a physical check they had mailed to California's Registry of Charities simply got lost in the mail. That's right, a multi-million-dollar foundation backed by one of the most famous couples on the planet blamed the Postal Service for their compliance failure. In 2024, when electronic payments and bank transfers exist. But here's where the story takes an even more suspicious turn. Within days of the embarrassing news breaking, California Governor Gavin Newsom himself jumped into the fray. During an unrelated press event, Newsom went out of his way to defend Harry and Meghan, calling the whole situation a technical paperwork issue that was wildly overhyped. He personally vouched for the foundation, insisting they were fully in compliance. Sources close to Sacramento are still scratching their heads over this intervention. Since when does the governor of California take time out of his schedule to personally defend a celebrity charity over a filing dispute? The optics were terrible. It reeked of preferential treatment, of powerful people protecting their own. Political commentators noted that Newsom and the Sussexes travel in similar elite circles. Some whispered about mutual friends in Hollywood and Silicon Valley. Others pointed to shared political alignments and fundraising networks. The Registry of Charities quickly updated Archewell's status to current and in good standing after the supposed replacement check arrived, but the damage was already done. Charity watchdogs had taken notice. Financial journalists started digging deeper into the foundation's records, and ordinary people began wondering why a couple who constantly lectures the world about doing better couldn't even keep their own nonprofit paperwork in order. What makes this even more troubling is the pattern it reveals. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader trend of sloppiness, missed deadlines, and questionable administrative practices that have plagued Archewell since its inception. The lost check excuse might have satisfied Governor Newsom and friendly media outlets, but the IRS operates by different rules entirely. Federal tax authorities don't care about celebrity status or political connections, and they have been watching Archewell very, very closely. If the delinquency debacle wasn't damning enough, charity oversight organizations have uncovered something even more troubling about how Archewell actually operates. According to Charity Watch, one of the most respected independent charity watchdog groups in America, the Archewell Foundation's governing board consists of exactly two people, just two, Harry and Meghan themselves. Let that sink in for a moment. A foundation that has handled millions of dollars in donations, that claims to be making a global impact, that positions itself as a serious philanthropic enterprise, is essentially being run like a mom-and-pop shop. There is no independent oversight. There are no outside voices providing checks and balances. There is no separation between the founders and the people supposedly holding them accountable. Charity Watch CEO Lori Styron has been blunt about the problems this creates. She has publicly stated that the widely accepted minimum best practice in the nonprofit sector is 5 voting board members, with the majority being independent from the organization's founders. This isn't some arbitrary guideline. It exists because charities are not small businesses or personal hobbies. They are entities that hold public money in public trust for public benefit. When a married couple controls every single decision a charity makes, conflicts of interest become almost inevitable. Who decides how much the executives get paid? Harry and Meghan. Who approves which programs receive funding? Harry and Meghan. Who reviews the financial statements before they're filed with the IRS? You guessed it, Harry and Meghan. Styron has warned that a charity whose board is too small and lacks independent members is simply not well positioned to consistently make decisions in the best interest of the organization. The foundation exists to serve the public good, not to function as an extension of its founder's personal brand or lifestyle, yet everything about Archewell's governance structure suggests the opposite. Insiders familiar with nonprofit operations say this two-person board arrangement is extraordinarily rare among legitimate charitable organizations of Archewell's size. Most foundations actively recruit diverse, independent board members precisely because donor confidence depends on transparent, accountable governance. When potential major donors evaluate where to place their philanthropic dollars, board composition is one of the first things they examine. Perhaps this explains why Archewell's donations collapsed so dramatically after its first year. Sophisticated donors and institutional funders know exactly what to look for. A two-person board controlled entirely by a celebrity couple sends up immediate red flags. It signals that the foundation may prioritize the founder's interests over its stated charitable mission. Royal sources speculate that Meghan has resisted expanding the board because she cannot tolerate anyone questioning her decisions. Those who have worked closely with the Duchess describe a management style that demands absolute loyalty and brooks no dissent. An independent board would mean independent opinions. It would mean pushback. It would mean accountability. And if there's one thing Meghan Markle has demonstrated throughout her public life, it's that accountability is not exactly her strong suit. Now let's follow the money, because the financial trajectory of Archewell tells a story that no amount of PR spin can disguise. When the foundation launched in 2021, it burst onto the scene with impressive numbers. The Sussexes reported raising approximately $13 million in their first full year of operation. Major donations flowed in from sources including the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, which contributed a staggering $10 million alone. Harry and Meghan seemed poised to build a philanthropic empire. Then came 2022, and everything changed. According to IRS filings that Charity Watch obtained from the foundation's own website, Archewell's donations plummeted to just $2 million. That represents an $11 million collapse in a single year, an 85% drop, the kind of freefall that would send any nonprofit board into crisis mode. Except, of course, Archewell's board consists only of Harry and Meghan themselves. Financial analysts who study charitable organizations say this kind of dramatic decline typically signals serious underlying problems. Either donors have lost confidence in the foundation's leadership, or they've concluded that their money isn't being used effectively, or both. Major philanthropic institutions don't simply walk away from organizations they've invested millions in unless something has gone very wrong. But here's what makes the situation even more concerning. Charity Watch reached out to the Archewell Foundation in January of 2024, requesting copies of their most recent IRS Form 990 and audited financial statements. These are standard documents that any transparent, well-run charity should readily provide. They contacted Archewell by email and by postal mail. They waited for a response, and waited, and waited. As of February 2024, the charity had not responded to these basic transparency requests. For an organization that claims to operate under the motto "show up and do good," they certainly weren't showing up when a respected watchdog came calling with reasonable questions about their finances. This silence speaks volumes. Legitimate foundations understand that transparency builds donor confidence. They welcome opportunities to demonstrate their financial integrity. They have nothing to hide. So why would Archwell refuse to engage with the very organizations designed to help the public evaluate charitable effectiveness? The foundation's own tax filings reveal another troubling detail. Despite handling millions of dollars, Harry and Meghan each reported working just 52 hours annually for Archwell in 2021. That's 1 hour per week. While this is technically standard practice for foundation directors, it raises questions about who is actually managing day-to-day operations and making critical financial decisions. Sources close to the foundation suggest that staff turnover has been relentless, with multiple executives departing within short time frames. The president of Archwell, Mandana Dayani, resigned in December 2022. Other key personnel have cycled through the organization at an alarming rate. Where exactly is the money going? How are decisions being made, and why won't anyone at Archwell answer straightforward questions about their financial practices? The silence from Montecito grows louder by the day. Now we arrive at the heart of why this sudden rebrand has charity experts raising alarm bells across the nonprofit world. The Sussexes didn't just change their foundation's name from Archewell Foundation to Archewell Philanthropies. They fundamentally altered its entire operating structure by shifting to what's called a fiscal sponsorship model. And understanding what this means reveals exactly why critics believe this move is about escaping scrutiny rather than expanding impact. Under a traditional private foundation structure, organizations must file detailed annual reports with the IRS. Every grant must be documented. Every expenditure must be explained. Every financial decision becomes part of the public record through Form 990 filings. Donors, journalists, and watchdog organizations can examine exactly where the money goes and how it's being spent. Transparency is baked into the system. A fiscal sponsorship model operates very differently. Under this arrangement, an established outside nonprofit handles the compliance, finances, and administrative functions. The Sussexes get to focus on what they call guiding the mission and setting priorities, without the burden of detailed public reporting. In practical terms, this means far less visibility into specific programs and how donor dollars actually flow through the organization. Industry insiders are connecting the dots. One charity governance expert described fiscal sponsorships as useful for legitimate organizations that want to grow quickly without administrative overhead. But they also noted that the reduced reporting requirements can be attractive to foundations seeking to avoid the kind of detailed scrutiny that traditional structures demand. The timing of this restructuring is impossible to ignore. Archwell spent years under the microscope of charity watchdogs. They faced embarrassing questions about their tiny two-person board. They suffered the humiliation of being declared delinquent by California. They stonewalled Charity Watch's requests for financial documents, and now conveniently, they've restructured into a model that provides significantly less transparency. Royal sources suggest Meghan has grown increasingly frustrated with the level of public examination her charitable activities receive. Unlike the controlled media environment she enjoyed during her brief time as a working royal, American nonprofit regulations demand genuine accountability. You cannot simply issue press releases about your good works. You must actually prove where the money went. Word behind closed doors is that the Duchess believed running a foundation would be far simpler than it turned out to be. The paperwork requirements, the filing deadlines, the oversight mechanisms, all of it grated against her desire for complete control over her public image. A fiscal sponsorship allows her to maintain the appearance of major philanthropic activity without the inconvenient accountability measures. Of course, the Sussexes spokesperson insists this restructuring is about streamlining operations and reducing administrative burden so they can focus on maximum impact. They claim it will allow the whole family, including young Archie and Lilibet, to participate in global philanthropic endeavors. But those who have watched Archewell stumble from one administrative failure to another aren't buying the official narrative. This looks less like evolution and more like escape. To truly understand how far Harry and Meghan have fallen in the charitable arena, one need only look across the Atlantic at what genuine royal philanthropy actually looks like. Just days before the Sussexes dropped their suspicious rebrand announcement, Prince William made headlines for all the right reasons. He took his eldest son, Prince George, to visit The Passage, a homeless charity in London that has been close to the royal family's heart for decades. This wasn't a staged photo opportunity with professional lighting and carefully curated camera angles. This was a future king teaching his son about service and compassion through hands-on action. William and George served food to homeless individuals. They engaged in genuine conversation with people facing hardship. They demonstrated what it actually means to show up and do good, not as a slogan on a website, but as a lived practice. The visit carried profound emotional weight because it continued a legacy that Princess Diana herself began over 30 years ago. Diana famously brought a young William to The Passage in 1993. teaching him that royal privilege comes with profound responsibility to those less fortunate. Now William is passing that same lesson to his own son, 3 generations of genuine, consistent, unglamorous charitable commitment. Compare this to what Archwell offers. Slick videos produced with Hollywood production values, carefully managed appearances at high-profile galas, press releases announcing partnerships that generate headlines but raise questions about actual impact. The Sussexes talk constantly about compassion and service, but their charitable activities seem designed primarily to burnish their personal brand rather than genuinely help those in need. Sources who have worked with both the Wales family and the Sussexes describe a stark difference in approach. William and Catherine arrive at charitable events focused entirely on the people they're there to serve. They listen, they engage, they follow up. Their patronages span decades because they build genuine, lasting relationships with the organizations they support. Meghan's approach, according to those same sources, tends toward the transactional. Events are evaluated based on media coverage potential. Partnerships are assessed by how they enhance her public image. The actual charitable impact often seems secondary to the promotional value. This contrast became painfully apparent when the Sussexes released their holiday video alongside the Archewell rebrand. While William was quietly serving meals to homeless Londoners, Harry and Meghan were producing cinematic content showcasing their own good works. One approach puts the beneficiaries at the center, the other puts the celebrities at the center. Royal watchers have noted that William never needs to constantly remind people he's charitable. His decades of consistent low-key service speak for themselves. The Sussexes, by contrast, seem to require constant public validation of their philanthropic credentials. Every charitable act must be documented, promoted, and celebrated. Perhaps this explains why William's charitable endeavors continue to attract support and respect, while Archewell's donations have collapsed and oversight organizations are asking uncomfortable questions. Actions, as they say, speak far louder than press releases. The Archewell rebrand didn't arrive in isolation. It was strategically bundled with what the Sussexes clearly hoped would serve as a distraction: a glossy holiday video and a family card designed to project warmth, unity, and charitable purpose. But instead of softening the foundation controversy, these releases sparked a firestorm of their own. Critics took one look at the Sussex family photo and immediately noticed something deeply troubling. Harry and Meghan don't appear connected whatsoever. The image shows the couple each holding one of their children, positioned against an expansive outdoor backdrop. But there's zero interaction between husband and wife, no loving glances, no physical closeness, no sense of family unity. They might as well be 2 separate photographs, awkwardly merged together. Body language experts have had a field day analyzing the image. The disconnect is so striking that many commentators openly questioned whether Harry and Meghan were even photographed together or if the picture was digitally composited from separate shoots. The children appear unkempt, with Lilibet's hair noticeably disheveled in what is supposedly a carefully planned holiday portrait. For a couple obsessed with controlling their public image, the sloppiness is baffling. The card itself said "Happy Holidays" rather than "Merry Christmas," a choice that drew pointed criticism given Harry's father is the Supreme Governor of the Church of England. Royal commentators viewed this as yet another deliberate snub aimed at the institution Harry abandoned. The message read like a calculated middle finger to British tradition wrapped in generic American seasonal greetings. Even more telling was the accompanying holiday video. Rather than a simple, heartfelt message to supporters, the Sussexes produced what amounted to a highlight reel of their own good deeds. Footage of their controversial trips to Nigeria and Colombia, clips showcasing their wildfire relief efforts, images of them looking compassionate and concerned. The entire production screamed, "Look at us," rather than conveying genuine holiday warmth. Insiders suggest the video was months in the planning, with professional production teams carefully crafting every frame. This wasn't a casual family greeting. It was a branding exercise designed to rehabilitate their increasingly tarnished image, and it launched simultaneously with the Archewell Philanthropies announcement, creating a coordinated PR blitz meant to overwhelm any critical coverage. But viewers weren't fooled. Social media reaction ranged from mockery to outright hostility. People noted that genuine philanthropists don't produce cinematic tributes to their own generosity. They simply do the work. The Sussexes' constant need to showcase their charitable activities only reinforces suspicions that image matters more than impact. Sources close to the couple describe growing desperation behind the scenes. Meghan reportedly believes that enough positive content can eventually shift public perception in her favor. She remains convinced that the narrative can be controlled if only they produce enough flattering material. But every polished video and staged photograph seems to backfire. The harder they try to appear authentic, the more manufactured everything feels, and the public has grown very tired of the performance. Perhaps the most eyebrow-raising element of the Archewell Philanthropies announcement was the explicit inclusion of Harry and Meghan's children in their restructured charitable operation. According to their official statement, this new entity will allow the couple and their children to expand upon their global philanthropic endeavors as a family. Archie is 6 years old, Lilibet is 4, and their parents are already positioning them as participants in a global charitable enterprise. This raised immediate red flags among child welfare advocates and royal commentators alike. What exactly does philanthropic participation look like for a preschooler and a first grader? Are these children genuinely choosing to engage in charitable work, or are they being used as props to enhance their parents' rebranding efforts? The distinction matters enormously. When Prince William brought Prince George to the passage, it was a private teaching moment between father and son. George is 12 years old, approaching an age where he can genuinely understand concepts of service and social responsibility. William didn't issue press releases announcing George's charitable debut. He simply took his son to learn about helping others, and the public happened to witness it. The Sussexes operate from an entirely different playbook. Their children's involvement in Archewell Philanthropies has been formally announced as part of a corporate restructuring. It's built into the foundation's official messaging. Archie and Lilibet aren't quietly learning about charity through age-appropriate experiences. They're being branded as junior philanthropists before they've even finished primary school. Sources familiar with nonprofit governance question whether young children can meaningfully participate in a charitable organization's mission. Philanthropy requires understanding complex social issues, evaluating organizational effectiveness, and making informed decisions about resource allocation. These aren't skills that 4- and 6-year-olds possess, regardless of how gifted their parents believe them to be. Critics suggest the children's inclusion serves a very different purpose. By positioning Archie and Lilibet as part of the philanthropic endeavor, Harry and Meghan create a more sympathetic narrative around their foundation. Attacking Archewell means attacking a family enterprise that supposedly includes innocent children. It's a calculated shield against legitimate criticism. Royal insiders also note the irony of Harry and Meghan claiming to protect their children's privacy while simultaneously featuring them in foundation announcements. The couple has repeatedly complained about media intrusion and expressed determination to give Archie and Lilibet normal childhoods away from public scrutiny. Yet here they are incorporating their young children into a highly publicized charitable rebrand. The contradiction is glaring. Either the children deserve privacy and protection from public life, or they're active participants in their parents' global philanthropic brand. The Sussexes cannot have it both ways, though they certainly keep trying. Palace watchers speculate that Meghan sees her children as essential elements of long-term image rehabilitation. Cute kids generate positive coverage. Family-focused philanthropy sounds wholesome and relatable. If the foundation's struggles continue, adorable photographs of Archie and Lilibet doing good works might provide valuable distraction. Using children as PR tools, however, rarely ends well for anyone involved. The Archwell restructuring doesn't exist in isolation. It's merely the latest chapter in a long and troubling pattern of launches, pivots, and quiet abandonments that has defined the Sussexes' post-royal career. Every major initiative they've announced has eventually been reworked, scaled back, or discarded entirely, and this foundation rebrand fits that pattern perfectly. Cast your mind back to 2020 when Harry and Meghan signed their much-hyped deal with Spotify. The streaming giant reportedly paid them around $20 million to produce podcasts through Archwell Audio. The couple promised groundbreaking content that would uplift and inspire global audiences. Harry spoke ambitiously about interviewing world leaders like Vladimir Putin and Pope Francis. The potential seemed limitless. What did Spotify actually get for their $20 million? One season of Meghan's Archetypes podcast consisting of 12 episodes. That was it. By June 2023, Spotify terminated the partnership entirely. A senior Spotify executive reportedly called the Sussexes grifters in the aftermath, though this characterization was later walked back. The audio division that was supposed to revolutionize podcasting simply evaporated. Then there's Netflix. In 2020, the Sussexes signed what was reported as a $100 million deal to produce content through Archewell Productions. 5 years later, the output has been remarkably thin. Their documentary series generated headlines but mixed reviews. Meghan's lifestyle show With Love Meghan launched to underwhelming reception. Reports indicate Netflix chose not to renew the original deal, instead negotiating project-by-project arrangements going forward. The production company itself has seen constant executive turnover. Ben Browning was hired to lead the venture, then departed in 2023. Other key personnel have cycled through with alarming frequency. Projects get announced with fanfare, then quietly disappear from production schedules. The grand Hollywood ambitions that fueled their royal exit have produced mostly disappointment. Now Archewell Foundation follows the same trajectory. Launched with enormous expectations and significant initial funding, it quickly stumbled into administrative chaos, plummeting donations and oversight failures. Rather than address the underlying problems, Harry and Meghan have simply rebranded and restructured, hoping a new name and different operating model will make the difficulties disappear. Industry observers note that successful organizations don't constantly reinvent themselves. They build on solid foundations, learn from mistakes, and steadily grow their capabilities over time. The Sussexes approach every setback by pivoting to something new new, rather than doing the hard work of fixing what's broken. Sources close to the couple describe an internal culture where blame is always externalized. Spotify failed them. Netflix didn't understand their vision. Charity regulators treated them unfairly. The common denominator in every struggling venture is Harry and Meghan themselves, but that possibility never seems to be considered. This pattern of grand announcements followed by quiet failures has eroded credibility across every industry the Sussexes have touched. Entertainment executives have grown wary. Philanthropic partners have stepped back. Even their most ardent supporters struggle to defend the mounting evidence of dysfunction. The pivot parade continues, but the audience is losing patience. As we survey the wreckage of Archewell's first 5 years, one thing becomes crystal clear. The walls are closing in on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's charitable empire, and no amount of rebranding can disguise the fundamental problems at its core. They've gone from a $13 million launch to a $2 million collapse, from California delinquency notices to unanswered watchdog inquiries, from promises of transparency to a restructuring that reduces public accountability. The IRS does not operate on celebrity time. Federal tax authorities have strict requirements for charitable organizations, and the consequences for non-compliance are severe. Organizations that fail to file required returns for 3 consecutive years automatically lose their tax-exempt status. Period. No exceptions for dukes and duchesses. No special treatment for Hollywood connections. The rules apply equally to everyone, regardless of how many Netflix documentaries they've produced. Charity watchdogs have made clear they're not going away. Charity Watch, Charity Navigator, and other oversight organizations will continue requesting documents and asking uncomfortable questions. The Sussexes' refusal to engage with legitimate transparency requests only intensifies suspicion that something is being hidden. Legitimate foundations welcome scrutiny because they have nothing to fear. Archwell's pattern of stonewalling suggests a very different reality. The fiscal sponsorship restructuring may provide temporary cover, but it doesn't erase the foundation's troubled history. Tax filings from previous years remain part of the public record. The delinquency notice is documented. The 2-person board structure has been widely reported. Future donors and partners will encounter this information when conducting due diligence. A name change doesn't rewrite history. Royal sources suggest King Charles has been quietly monitoring the Archewell situation with growing concern. The foundation's struggles reflect poorly on the entire Windsor family, regardless of Harry's estrangement. Every negative headline about charitable mismanagement reminds the public that a senior royal walked away from legitimate service to pursue this dysfunction. The reputational damage extends far beyond Montecito. Perhaps most damning is what the Sussexes' charitable failures reveal about their characters. They demanded freedom from royal constraints, claiming they could accomplish more independently. They positioned themselves as compassionate change-makers who would revolutionize philanthropy. They lectured the world about showing up and doing good, and then they couldn't manage basic nonprofit compliance. They couldn't maintain donor confidence. They couldn't build a functional organization. The gap between their rhetoric and their reality has never been wider. Meghan Markle built her brand on authenticity and service, yet her foundation lurches from crisis to crisis while she produces glossy videos celebrating her own generosity. Harry spoke passionately about continuing his mother's legacy, yet his charitable venture faces questions Princess Diana's organizations never encountered. The Archewell Philanthropies rebrand is not a fresh start. It's a desperate attempt to escape accountability for years of mismanagement. And the world is watching to see whether this latest pivot succeeds or becomes another embarrassing chapter in the Sussex story. So tell us what you think. Is this rebrand genuine evolution or calculated escape? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next revelation is coming, and you will not believe what's about to surface.